Hey everyone, once again this is Mark with Atlanta IT Service showing a quick video tutorial on how to archive your Outlook PST or Outlook data file. In a previous video we went over Outlook 2007, today we're going to be looking at 2010, which does have a slightly different user interface, although the process for archiving is very similar. If you were to visit our website, AtlantaITService.com, scroll over to Tips and News, and under our Tech Tips section you'll find a post labeled Outlook Archive, which displays step-by-step instructions on how to do exactly what we're going over in this video today, archive your Outlook data file. Also, there is a link to our YouTube page that has our video tutorials as well. But right now, we can go ahead and get started. I've got my Outlook 2010 open right here, and just before we continue, I wanted to relay the main purpose of archiving, which is to ensure stability in the Outlook program. Over time, your data file can grow quite large if you're prone to not deleting emails out of your inbox or other folders, and having such a rather large data file can result in sluggish performance and sometimes even errors in Outlook. Now, archiving will back up, save, and move a large chunk of your data file to a location outside of Outlook just so the program doesn't have to load all that data every time you launch and try to use it. So archiving is basically just good housekeeping. It's a great way to stay organized and an excellent way to ensure that Outlook will run smoothly. Now, taking a look at this example data file we have here, we can see it's very large just by looking at the dates of these emails. They go as far back as, June 2005. And that alone indicates that this is probably a very large data file and needs to be archived. The first thing we can do is actually check the size of our data file by moving over to our Mail Folders column and clicking on the heading or email address, which is the root of your PST file. Making sure that's highlighted, you can give a right click to pull up a window of different options and choose Data File Properties. Now, there's a few things you can do from our Properties window, but what we're interested in today is the folder size. Clicking here opens our folder size window, which displays a breakdown of every individual subfolder size, but the total size will indicate the actual size of your PST file. This one here, for example, is over a gigabyte, which is a fairly large PST file and needs archiving. If your folder size is getting close to 2 gigs, it's highly recommended that you archive. If we close out of here, we can go ahead and begin the archiving process, which again is slightly different in version 2010. If we click on File up in the top left-hand corner, I want to click on the Cleanup Tools menu and scroll down and choose the Archive option, which opens our Archive Options window. Now, before we continue, we want to be sure that if you have multiple personal folders or multiple data files that you're choosing the correct one to archive. If you have multiple email addresses associated with your Outlook account, you can archive them individually. You just want to be sure that the email address or data file that you're archiving is highlighted. You do have the option to archive individual folders, but the best way to stay organized, and for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to keep the email address highlighted and archive the entire data file. The next step is to choose a date for which to archive. You can click the drop-down arrow to choose a date from the calendar, or you can actually type in a date yourself. I believe by default Outlook gives you 3 months back, but you can go back further. Again, the larger your PST file or data file is, the farther you want to go back to archive. Just remember that every item in every folder older than the date you choose will be backed up to an archived data file and saved outside of Outlook. For really large data files, it's not uncommon to go back a year. And for this particular file, I'm just going to go back to let's say April 1st, 2009. Now, if you have any messages in your boxes marked Do Not Archive, you can include or not include them by checking or unchecking this box here. And now we move on to choosing a location to where Outlook will save our archive file. In previous versions of Outlook, the default location was actually a very long file path and sort of hard to reach when you needed to recover your archive. In Outlook 2010, they've done you the justice of defaulting your archive location to your My Documents folder, which is actually a really good location to save it for easy recovery later. It is, though, always a good idea to rename your archive something cohesive to the date that you chose, and you can do that by clicking Browse. And from this window, if you'd like, you can change the location in which Outlook will dump your archive file. But again, the My Documents folder and in the Outlook Files folder is an excellent location for easy recovery later. As far as the file name, I always like to name it something cohesive to the date that we chose. In this case, it was April 2009. Of course, you can choose any name you like. This is just for easy organization. And we can go ahead and hit OK when we're all done. Now, before we continue, we want to make sure all of our settings are right, because once you hit OK, the archiving process will begin. Everything here looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK and let Outlook start archiving my mail. If you were to go back to your mailbox, you can actually check the status of your archiving. Outlook is processing in the bottom right hand corner your archive, and we'll go through each folder one by one. Now, if you were to go back to your mail folder section, you'll notice that Outlook mounted an archive folder alongside next to your other data files. And if you click on the actual inbox or any of these folders, you can see one by one Outlook is archiving each message. This can actually take some time if you have a very large data file, and it's best to let Outlook complete archiving before using the program. So it may be a good idea to start archiving at a time where you can take a break from Outlook for just a while. So we'll just let this complete archiving and we'll be right back. Alright, and when Outlook is done archiving, under your archives folder you should see an exact mirror of all the folders and their contents of your current PSD file, except the only difference would be all these items are going to be older than the date that you archived. In this case, all these items are going to be older than April 2009. Now, since the main purpose of archiving is to ensure that Outlook doesn't have to load all these older items every time you launch the program, we'll want to next close our archive folder. And we do so by once again clicking and highlighting the heading or root of our archives folder, right-clicking and choosing the close option. If you were to now close and relaunch the Outlook program, you should notice that there's already an increase in productivity when the program first launches. And that's again mainly because it doesn't have to load all that extra data that we just archived. You should also notice that the archive folders in your mail folder section is closed, and still intact is your current data file containing the more recent messages younger than the date that we archived. Now, if we ever needed to retrieve any of those items that were older than the date we archived, what we have to do is tell Outlook to once again mount that archive folder. We do that by looking to the top left hand corner and clicking on the new items button, scrolling down to more items and choosing the Outlook data file option. Next, we point Outlook to find the actual archive that we just created. Outlook 2010 does a really good job of pointing you directly to the archive, but if for whatever reason you've lost the path, it's saved in your My Documents or Documents folder in a folder called Outlook Files, and there it is, April 2009. You can choose that and go ahead and hit OK, and the next window that opens is your Outlook data file window, which from here you can actually add settings, a password, you can compact your data file if you'd like, and you can also change how the name is displayed in your mail folder section. I always like to name mine again something cohesive to the date of the archive. Since it's already named April 2009, I'm good to go. I can go ahead and hit OK. And as you can see, Outlook has mounted our archive data file. From here, you can retrieve any old items or messages in any of the folders throughout. You just want to be sure that when you're completely done to close our data file so Outlook doesn't have to load it every time we launch the program. And we do that once again by going up to the heading or root of our archive, right-clicking, and choosing the close option. And with that archive closed, you can now enjoy the smaller, more streamlined data file you have in Outlook, and you should notice more organized and smoother performance in the program itself. I'd like to say thanks for watching and happy archiving.